monster baseball slate. It's a really good one. We've had some sort of dud slates, and there's a lot of different things you can do on this one that I think are pretty interesting. So that's my first look. And Sheets, any overall thoughts before we get into game by game here?
Not really. Just to kind of recap yesterday, I did end. It was as you guys may know, it was definitely a shit show with DraftKings shutting down for a while. But I did end up not needing the refund because I did cash in the bigger buy-in, which was 23rd, 24th, better than nothing. So there was that. My new hero, my Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope guy from the Angel. That guy always hits home runs for me. That hope guy. So that was
he does every time, right?
Yeah. So that was fortunate. And and we were right to fade the Atlanta. I mean, they can they not score anymore? Is that the story? We'll have to see. And the Yankees, it took them quite a while to get there, but they eventually exploded. In the late innings. And I'm ready, I guess. Listen, a big full slate, like we said. And again, I keep on struggling with how to do this content every single day. And
what's that? What's bothering you about
No. About how to handle this. Because I don't want people to think like who I like is who I'm playing. But then again, I want to show a process too. So what we're going to do, we'll go game by game, and we're going to talk about who I like, or you like, and who we both like, and then in the end, we'll just run a SaberSim build, and see what we do. So we'll do a little bit of who we like, and then some process, and that'll satisfy.
Yep, absolutely, sounds good to me. All right, let's pull your screen up and we'll go game by game here. One thing I noticed on SaberSim today, I just feel like the strikeout projections are a little bit too low for everybody. Like there's nobody above 6 today, and it just feels a little low. So I'm not saying that they're wrong, even just it's something that threw me off with the pitching today, where basically like 10 pitchers are rating to be like the same pitcher, essentially.
Yeah, but I actually like. I mean, talking about an overall view of the slate for a big slate. I mean, I don't have anybody pitching wise that's like looks that great. So and all very close to one another. So we'll see where we come up with. Like Savali though, I mean, I have, for example, about 12, 13 pitchers, all kind of within 10 points of each other. And listen, 10 points is a lot, but whatever. I've seen worse. I was about to say Savali just misses for me. Although, I mean, he's going to be – I have him at 3% ownership, so I don't know. He's certainly in hand build's not going to be a priority. Certainly if I'm recommending like top plays, not going to be a priority. As far as Suarez, no, I'm not getting into him either. And as far as the hitting goes, not really too much of either team here. So I think this is kind of like a zero-pronger for me.
Yeah, this is not the most interesting game, I guess, for me either. I definitely have zero interest in the pitching. There's no way in the world you can get me to play either of these guys. I think that if you're going to make a play here, you're going to have basically a bullpen game from Baltimore, and then you've got a Baltimore stack that's going to be low owned against a guy we used to love to pick on, who we don't love to pick on as much anymore because he's been better. But I think it's a talented enough offense with the Baltimore side of it where I am okay to at least consider them as a team for an early stack. And I wouldn't hate the Rays either. It's just so tricky in a bullpen game with the Rays. Who knows who's even going to be playing by the 5th inning, So
right.
Probably not going to go there. All right. And then we have Pittsburgh, Toronto.
Okay. Pittsburgh, Toronto, Berrios and Falter. Why? I was about to say, why don't I have Berrios projected all that great? I mean, he's projected fine. I mean, he's looks good enough. I have him rated like 6th or 7th, but again, for some context, I mean, they're all like really close to one another. And if his ownership is actually going to be 10% at 8,200, I certainly am willing to take a shot. I'm not really getting to Falter as far as the hitting goes. It's time to start playing Toronto again. I'm not really seeing it, so I'm not really getting to any of the hitting here. So for me, it's Berrios, and that's it.
Yeah, I have Barrios as a totally playable. Again, there's a lot of guys we're gonna argue with, not argue about, but just a lot of guys we're gonna consider. He's one of them, and I feel okay about it. I like when pitchers who face teams they don't face very often, and they're in different leagues and stuff. They tend to not have as good reports on them. So I'm good with the idea of some Barrios, and I think it's interesting. This is like the first time in a while we haven't seen that much ownership on Toronto, and I think it's a reasonable enough spot to take a shot with Toronto. So I have Toronto and Baltimore in a similar. Hey, they're not necessarily my favorite stacks, but they are stacks that I'm considering. All right, next up, what do you have? The looks like Boston, Detroit at Boston.
I have Detroit, Boston, and I have to say that, well, first of all, Houck is showing up as a play. I have him as like fourth, but again, when I say fourth, that's like pretty close to everybody. 13-15% ownership sounds about right. I currently am not getting a projection that makes that gives me anything on Maeda. Maybe I'm just being kind of really just hyper biased, just name value or whatever, but I don't know. I mean, he's only 6,600. And the pitching is not that great. I'm not completely opposed to it. Like if I get to it in MME, I'm not certainly not prioritizing it. That's for sure. As far as hitting goes, I'm actually getting Boston as the third best value as far as just value on the slate. So I figured I'd mention that. And they actually have some raw point upside too. So I'll consider Boston actually the first stack that I'll be willing to say prioritize, but it's gonna be a million games. We'll get to better ones later. But let's just start with Boston and Houck. So I do like Houck a little bit, and I definitely like a little bit of Boston.
Yeah, I'm open to I thought about the Maeda thing as well as just to completely get different. You're gonna have it's funny we're not gonna have chalky pitching. I do think we're gonna have the Dodgers are gonna be really popular today. I think Atlanta's gonna be really popular. So if you wanted to get different, maybe and also save money. I don't think it's a bad idea. The Red Sox strike out the fifth most in baseball against right-handed pitching, and look, he's not going to. The problem is, it's just you look at these, and he's not pitching deep into any games, and he hasn't thrown more than 88 pitches in the start, and they've cut him off at 75, even when he's pitching well. I just think it's probably too thin for this slate. But I don't think it's a bad. It's like the wrong idea. I think if I'm playing 150, I would probably get like 3 or 4% of it, maybe 5%. I don't think I can get to main play. Houck, I do think is definitely playable. Tigers strike out the 9th most in baseball against righties, and I also don't mind the Boston thing, but I think they're going to have a little bit of ownership, and I guess that my thinking was that if I'm going to play someone who I feel this way about, I kind of like the Baltimore and Toronto sides better, but I certainly wouldn't argue against Boston if that's what you wanted to do, and certainly not, even if you're not playing Boston, you've got cheap pieces in there with like Dom Smith, who should be in at 2,400. Von Grissom has been terrible, but he's 2,100. Connor Wong is in the middle of the order at 3,600. There's a lot of cheap bats here. So Boston is going to probably come into play when you run simulations and stuff later on, just because of some of the value that they have. So for me, as a main stack, a little bit outside looking in, but not by much. And Houck is definitely one of the guys I'm considering. All right. And we will go on to Washington and Cleveland.
Yeah. I imagine that people are going to try to play Cleveland. I mean, I thought so because they're against Corbin, but I guess they're real expensive. So I guess I'm not seeing them own that much. So I guess they're probably pretty expensive, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that. I think BB is again a legitimate option at 9,400. Not biggest smash spot in the world and whatever. And this is the way I feel about like a lot of the pitchers here, honestly. We'll get to some better ones that have lower upside and some with better matchups, I guess. So I think BB again, he's going to be an MME guy to get a little bit of. I'm not going to go to Corbin today. And I'm probably not going to end up with Cleveland or Washington as far as hitting goes. So maybe a little bit of BB, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. look, they don't strike out quite as much as some of the other teams, but it's actually not that big of a difference in a per bat ratio. So I actually have BB as probably the best guy we've mentioned so far. I believe he's right near, he's like the second highest K expectancy today. So I actually am really good with the BB idea. I also think, like, look, if you're playing on FanDuel, you got a good chance at the win. And I do like Cleveland because people are going to avoid them a little bit because of this pricing. And I think that's a reasonable time to jump in. It's not like great hitting weather in Cleveland or anything. It's not like a great spot, but I think that it's worth enough to where I'm going to probably have Cleveland exposure. I actually think that if they're going to stay this ownership, I'll probably go well over the field on them. It's not ideal, just leaving Coors. I still have the Coors pricing on some of these guys, but I do like Cleveland, and I do currently have BB ahead of all the other guys we talked about so far. All right. Next up is, which is next up?
I have Texas, Miami.
Oh, Texas, Miami, yeah. All right.
So for me, not getting to either of the pitchers here, and I currently have Miami as the top overall, just straight value, and it's interesting because, again, we used to just love just going against Arena, but I have to say it's only like one game this year that he's gotten beat up a little bit. You know what I mean? He's got 2 runs, 3 runs, 2 runs, 2 runs. That's not enough, So I have to see. I mean, it's a huge slate, and to just go super duper heavy on Miami just feels a little fishy. So, but they do rate to be top value, and we're going to see what Saberson does. I have this feeling that's what's going to end up happening. I haven't run a single lineup yet, but I'm just feeling that that's what they're going to do. But we'll see. Miami does rate to be top value. Texas, I have them rated pretty highly as well, both from a value perspective and just kind of a raw upside perspective. So I kind of like, well, I mean, I obviously like Texas as far as like their raw talent more than Miami. So I'm gonna consider both sides of this of the bats here, and neither of the pitchers.
Yeah, I'm taking a quick look to see if the any chances the roof is open. It's closed.
In Miami?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just taking a look, just in case you want to figure those out. I really need Adam Hadwin right here. Okay, so Urena and Sixto, I'm not playing either of these guys. Sixto's like, he's only been like pitching like 4 innings a start, sort of a bullpenish situation. Texas is awesome, so I have no problem, look, there's awesome hitters in their lineup, and they've heated up a little bit. I still feel like this game just is a little bit further behind than the other games. I'm not as getting to Miami as much on this slate, but I'm open to any of these things. I just personally am probably going to be off this game, with the exception of I might reconsider the Texas thing a little bit later, because I do like that offense. I have them. I guess they're in the same category as the Baltimore, Toronto, Boston for me. So not a major priority below Cleveland, but definitely in the mix. All right, Arizona and the Mets.
This was awesome. So Gallen got taken out in the first inning, and the Mets still couldn't put anything together. But good enough to win the game.
Frustrating. When you
Francisco Lindor had like 1,000 fantasy points. He was like the entire offense. It was amazing. Yeah. It's like stolen base, home run, 4 for 4.
Yeah,
doesn't get better than that. All right. As far as the pitching and everything goes here, wow. I'm not getting, I don't think, to either of these guys too much. I probably should. Severino, I just have him rated kind of low. I don't know what else to say. Arizona, Montgomery. Why do I have him rated so low? I mean, I don't. The Mets stink. You know what I mean? Like, the Mets stink, and I have him at 2% owned. I don't know what I'm going to have to do in this slate. It's like kind of ridiculous. Anyway, I'm not getting either of these pitchers. I am also not getting to either a hitting here. And I feel as though I should be doing something, but you gotta like it's these pitchers, no, with these prices. I don't know. What do you think, Bobby?
It's interesting because like Severino, it seems like the pricing, but if you just go through, like he's just not striking out people the same way that he used to anymore. Like it's bad. So could he have a plus game at 8K? Sure. Jordan Montgomery, I don't even consider on slates like this. So
oh, really? Okay.
He just doesn't have any strikeout. I mean, he's projected. His strikeouts are projected like lower than Maeda and those guys. Okay. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't know. What is it, 4.4 for him? Like, yeah.
Oh my God! When I click on the arrow, I have like 8 more games. You're right. Look how huge is the slate.
It's a monster slate. Yeah. So I'm okay with just passing on all sides of this game as of right now. Severino would be the only one I would really consider probably by the end of the day, but nothing else for me in that game. Now we got the Atlanta game.
Yeah. So you're gonna get Rolando Lopez at decent ownership and a decent projection, in part because obviously they're playing Oakland or whatever. I'm not saying I'm right, wrong, or indifferent, but I suggested after like one of these games, like in April, like this last game in April, April 30th, that it was basically this whole thing was like a fraud and he just kind of stinks. I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm just saying that he's definitely not as good as how he started the season. And I think that I'm out on this one. That's gonna be my opinion. I have other guys to choose from that I'm a little more confident that these numbers are real. So I'm probably out on the Lopez thing. JP Sears, no thanks. Against Atlanta, and I don't know why I'm afraid of Atlanta, but still not doing it. I do actually have Atlanta as one, unfortunately, as one of my 3 top stacks. One of them was Texas, if I wasn't stressed enough, and we'll get to the other one later. But I have Atlanta as a very, very strong option this week today. And again, they haven't scored anything in like a while, but I've gotten to JP Sears before, and Atlanta still has guys somewhere that can hit, I guess. So I do like Atlanta here, and I'll probably end up being under on Lopez.
Yeah, it's true. Atlanta has not been scoring the same lately, and they do not have Ronald Acuna. And just because I'm just curious where the ownership ends up, because I love playing Atlanta at home in general. Lefties, righties, doesn't matter to me that much. And I also am on record by saying that I don't think JP Sears is nearly as bad as he gets treated and is I feel like every time I look at that projected opposing team's run line, it looks maybe a little bit higher than I thought it would be, but he hasn't been great lately. He had some really good starts earlier in the year. So I do have Atlanta as one of them right now, just because I think that's still a very, elite level offense, even though they've struggled lately. It is 80 degrees in Atlanta too, but there's a 6-mile-an-hour wind blowing in from left center, just for what it's worth. Lopez, I feel stuck to know what to do. I thought when he was like 10-2 and stuff, I was like, this is ridiculous. But I mean, honestly, like just the raw numbers, you'd think he was like the best pitcher in baseball still, even with the, that's the thing that you don't want to play it. That makes you not want to play him is like, here he is going 4 2/3, throwing 70 pitches, only giving up 2 runs, and you pulling him out of the game. I don't know. That doesn't make me feel comfortable. So I don't feel particularly comfortable with the Lopez idea as well, but I do have him on my list as a guy I'm definitely still considering because of Oakland, basically. And if you're going to take a different stand on something, maybe getting a little bit, I wouldn't go for the full stack, but cheap pieces in Oakland. You never know how they shake up their lineup. Every now and then you get like a 20 some odd hundred guy batting in the middle of the order. So I don't mind a little bit of getting to Oakland as maybe a value complementary stack or something like a 3-man, but not a priority for me in any way in that game either. And I'm okay with just sort of making this bigger slate small, because there's a lot of things that there's a lot to like here, a lot to not like, and there's just a lot of games. So I'm trying to make it small as we go.
Matt Olson, I just want to make a couple of comments. First of all, here's kind of like a rhetorical question I have. Like he played for Oakland for six years, and his last year was 2021. Do you think that there is anybody on Oakland right now that was there when he played in 2021? And that's only 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's a good question. I would bet there's 1 or 2, but I can't think off the top of my head who they would be.
Yeah. And I don't know. You think of what happens to franchises like this, like Oakland, when they literally like dump their whole team,
Right.
Interesting. The other thing, again, to the point about the difference in Atlanta this year and last year, I mean, it's exactly, by the way, 150. Yeah, it is exactly 1/3 through the season. They've had 54 games. That's 1/3 of 162 last I checked.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt Olson played a full 162 last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 8 home runs and 29 RBIs.
Yeah.
For those that forgot, he had 54 home runs and 139 RBIs with a 604 slugging percentage.
Yeah.
And 104 walks, by the way.
Yeah, that part hasn't changed.
He's only got 23 walks too. But
oh, really? I didn't realize he only had 23.
Yeah, this is like kind of like historic like regression, I guess. I don't know how to describe this.
It's wild. I mean, you could ask most people, he'd be considered maybe the unluckiest player in baseball so far this year. His hard hit rate is very, very close to what it was. It's a little lower, but not much different. And sometimes it just happens. You know what I mean? You go through a little bit of a slump thing, but I hear you. I hear you.
Anyway,
he will be the lowest owned piece he'll be the low owned piece because he's a lefty today.
Yep.
For what it's worth. Minnesota, Houston.
So next, the other guys who may or may not be frauds. I don't know. So you have Blanco here for Houston against Minnesota. Am I getting to this? Hold on a minute. I gotta have something. Must gotta be one. I have like Ronel Blanco with like a hopelessly terrible projection. I mean, I gotta give him a little bit better than this. I might have him like lower in raw points than like some other guys. He's 10-1. I don't know if I can get there. I just don't think I can do it. Pablo Lopez, 9,000. Oh boy. Just another one of these guys that just
this is what the slate is, man. It's crazy, huh?
Yeah, but this is against Houston. I just don't think I need to deal with this. So I'm probably going to end up making the excuse that to just probably avoid the whole game. I don't know. You have either of these if anything would probably be the pitchers, right? Any of this a priority for you?
No. Pablo Lopez, I think, has enough upside to where you can play him, but he's had a really bad starts, a few really bad starts in a row. It's a good matchup for Blanco, but I mean, it just feels super, super thin at 10-1 is the most expensive player on the slate. And he will occasionally they'll just pull him out of games. Like they've done it a couple times this year. They pulled his start before last. He only pitched 3 innings through 54 pitches, and he gave up nothing. So I don't, I just feel like I'm not embracing that variance at 10-1. I don't really know what they're doing with him. I guess if he's totally unowned, maybe you consider him, but I think I'm probably passing.
I have and listen, there's 30 pitchers on the slate, whatever. Like,
yeah,
I have the top owned guy at like 23%. You know what I mean? There's nobody that's like standing out.
Absolutely. It's crazy.
Yeah. So let's get to one that again, people might go to. I mean, you have Dylan Cease in Kansas City. And at least he, throws a ceiling up every once in a while. But Kansas City, that's no bargain. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I don't know if Kansas City's still considered a good matchup, but I don't know. They have Bobby Witt and Salvador Perez and guys that can hit the ball. I don't know. I currently have him at 21% ownership. I don't know. I just, again, if I'm going to prioritize guys, I guess, we'll get to the guy in a minute, I suppose. But I guess Cease is fine. But I almost would rather just go back to something like Barrios or something like that at 8,200 before paying another 1,400 or so for Cease. I don't know. Not getting to Waka. San Diego, a little bit, maybe. See what the weather's like over there, I guess, in Kansas City. But I don't know. You like Cease? You like Cease as a priority here?
No. I mean, for what it's worth, he used to pitch for the White Sox, and he pit against KC. They hit him pretty well every time, except for one, I think. But I do think he's got the most upside for strikeouts, so I have to at least consider him. But I don't feel excited about it. And to be honest with you, like, I mean, one thing is Kansas City's starting pitching has been unbelievable. Like, Walk has had a great year so far. I think that San Diego's like, hey, don't forget where Waka was just pitching. I love to do that.
That's right.
Your former pitcher. You get San Diego on the road, so you get all the at-bats. The problem is you got 9-mile-an-hour winds blowing in from right. Okay, I can avoid that. I can look away. I don't know. I'm San Diego. I'm teasing the idea of playing them, but I don't think I'm actually going to end up there by the end of the day. They're also not cheap, and like I said, Waka's been good, but I do like that pitchers the hitters against the former pitcher, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get there today.
All right. So this not this next one. We'll get to that in a minute. So White Sox Milwaukee, we have the leader of the free world, right? We have Eric Fetty. Now, unfortunately, it's a 400 game slate, so I can't really do it. But that's like the annoying thing. Like if he's 4% owned, I'm sure if it was a 7 game slate, he'd also be 4% owned. And then we'd maybe give it a shot. But I'm just not getting there. Slate too big. I might be interested in boy. Can I get to the White Sox? Like, I don't know who this Myers guy is. But if it turns into some like bullpen game, I don't really want to deal with it. I don't know. Huge slate. I guess I'm stretching. So yeah, nothing for me in this game.
Yeah. I mean, Myers is fine. Like as a, I don't know. I'm having a hard time getting to either the White Sox or Myers, but I do like both. I do like Milwaukee. And I'm going to take a quick look while we're doing this. I should have looked at this before, but I want to see what Fetty.
You're playing for the inevitable Fetty regression.
I just think, I guess I am.
Yep.
And this Milwaukee team has been better offensively than I think most people thought they would be, especially considering they've lost people, and because they have, the Hoskins is out and you got Ortiz in there instead, but he's a good young prospect. I mean, there's stuff to like here, so I'm okay with taking some swipes here with the Milwaukee side of things here.
Okay. Now I don't want to get you overweight or whatever, but you want to trend like on the fly. Okay, this goes on. Not even a trend. So Eric Fetty put up 108 pitches against Tampa, right? Next start, -1.7. Okay. Couple of starts later, he put up 99 pitches against Washington. Next start, 2.7 fantasy points against Toronto. In his last game, he put up 103 pitches. And this is the first game after that.
And against a really good offense. Yeah, I know. It's a spot where maybe it's worth taking him. I do think Milwaukee is going to fit some of my stuff.
Dude, this is the nuts. I'm telling you, this is what I'm going to want to get to. This is what I'm going to want to do.
Okay. I mean, I'm actually like totally with you. They were one of the teams that I circled to start the day, but you get to play your guy Turang, who every time he plays, he's a home run.
Absolutely. He might not lead off, right? Because it's righty, right? Oh,
no, he should be leading off.
Yeah, 42. Oh, he's lefty. Oh my God, he's going to be 40% owned. You kidding?
Nobody on this team will be more than 4 or 5% owned. There's too many games. Way too many. All right.
Yep. Nobody here is that expensive, I guess. Maybe I won't play Contreras, but you get Blake Perkins. Oh, let's go. That's what you want, a 15-game slate. We're gonna play all of the Blake Perkins. All right. All right. So this is just got to be where the chalk is. I think on both sides of the diamonds. You have the Dodgers, who first of all are showing up as top both value and raw points when you factor everything else in, and you have Walker Buehler, who, we talked about some pitchers who, listen, every pitcher's got some fleas. You can't like make a perfect case for anybody, and in fairness, nobody said that Walker Buehler is completely stretched out and ready to kill. You know what I mean? Like he 77 pitches 3 games in a row, and then was not good against Cincinnati. They stretch him out.
I thought he did pitch well in that game for what it's worth, but that's a.
You thought he pitched well?
You can pitch well and get up. You have 2 guys running home runs.
You're giving up six hits over 5. Whatever. Dream matchup though. This has got to be the best play. as far as pitching goes. I mean, all else being, we talked about all these other pitchers and their different issues, and it's not a surprise that he is the guy that I mentioned. It's 23% owned. First, this is not what you need to prioritize on a 15-game slate, but he's a pretty big size favorite to get the win bonus, which helps. And he's certainly inexpensive enough. So I guess in cash, if I were the type to play cash, which I'm not, I guess this would be the guy I would go to.
Yeah, I think that's the right call there. It does feel, look, there's some flimsiness in it. Okay, like there is it's strange that we just talked about all these pitchers and we're going to take a guy who's just coming off of basically missing baseball for 2 years, and is in his fifth or sixth start back. Although I have to say, I think he's looked better and better as he's gone. On top of it, he's faced this Colorado team a number of times, and everyone who's still left has hit him pretty well. There's an argument against him as well. I still, in spite of all this, he's got the highest K prop and highest K expectancy on the slate, and that's bizarre to me. When does Walker Buehler on a full slate going to have the highest? But it's just because of Colorado, and this offense is just terrible. Even though they're good at home, the Colorado offense, or they're decent at home. So I agree about Buehler. I do think that I can't help myself with the Dodgers. Now, I thought they were going to be crazy high owned, and I'm looking at it now through like Goldie's projections, which are pretty good, early, as far as early projections go, usually pretty good. You got Ohtani and Betts getting owned, but not a whole lot of other guys getting owned. Now, you've also seen like 3 or 4 pinch hitters in multiple games the Dodgers have had lately because they've got some depth. Jason Hayward, Gavin Lux, whether they start or not, might end up getting in there. We don't know yet. My hope also is that maybe the lineup comes out a little bit late so people don't think about them as much, or comes out a little different or something like that. The Dodgers have not been as good without Muncy. The bottom of the order has been pretty lousy. But I think that this is a spot against Dakota Hudson where I just kind of have to play at least a decent percentage of them, unless the ownership creeps up throughout the day. That's the only thing that will stop me. But I still think that it's going to be pretty spread out, like for what it's worth. And we've got some more stuff here with this next game that I'm trying to decide what to do with.
Again, it's important to also note the gap in games here. So all these games like before 8 o'clock, and then there's a 2-hour gap between these late games. I'm actually not surprised, but this would be a good opportunity for DraftKings to make 2 slates. It's a lot of games, and to have like
the Tuesday Friday thing. They've been doing this since they started. It's always going to be the monster game slates on Tuesday and Friday.
Okay, so both pitchers in this game, the Seattle game, have a good matchup, right? On paper, I guess. And Soriano and Wu rate decently. I actually have Soriano with extremely high value, projection for his price. I actually have him rated as the top point per dollar play on the slate for right now. Mm-hmm. And this is what happens when teams play against Seattle, and especially right-handed pitchers. So this is what you get. Brian Wu, I've actually been on the right side of the Brian Wu variance. Like whenever I seem to play him, he does pretty well. And good matchup. 9,200 feels expensive, which is certainly going to keep his ownership down. It's like I'm trying to think of like if I was playing like one lineup, like what my pairing would be as I'm going through this. Like,
yeah, it's tough.
I guess at the end of the day, maybe that's what I'm supposed to do is play just nothing from early, play Soriano, Buehler, and play the matchup game. Play the righty against Colorado, who's good. You play the righty against Seattle. I don't know if Soriano is actually good, but it's 7,300, and just kind of live with it. I don't know. I'm not getting to the hitting here. I don't know. What am I missing?
No, I think that that all makes sense. I'm not getting to the hitting here as well. I do think that you could make an argument for Seattle against Soriano, sort of a wide range of outcomes. But I also believe that the talent's there, and he's got the 3rd highest strikeout expectancy on the slate. He's 7,300. I think it's pretty obvious that we should be playing him, at least some. You know what I mean? Look, it's going to be the same thing with Seattle all year long. You're going to play pitchers against them. but you're also gonna, at times play some Seattle because the lineup isn't as bad as it's been. They will strike out, but they've got some pop, and so I don't mind both sides of that. But I think both these guys make the short list of the guys I'm considering for, like you said, if you're building one lineup, who are your pitchers? These guys are definitely both on my short list for right now. I don't think I'm going to get to the Seattle thing. Just thought I'd throw it out there because they're so cheap. You could build a stack with them. Even at 3. Everybody's like, other than Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh, everybody's like 2 or 3K. And Dylan Moore, who's batting 9th, so you're probably not playing anyway. So just threw it out there. But mostly it's the pitching for me in that game. All right, New York Yankees. Your Yankees in San Francisco always just feels weird to look at that happening. I don't know why, but it does. Sheets, nobody's going to play your Yankees here in a spot where if the game was in Yankee Stadium, they would be the most popular team or one of them. Don't you think that's the case?
So I wanted to update, a couple of things that we talked about yesterday. I said that I would talk about how the ownership projections worked out for yesterday's stuff, because I was suggesting it's possible that those Atlanta Yankee, teams might not be as popular as maybe we think, because people would be actively trying to pivot or whatever. Mm-hmm. It turns out that given the projected ownership, and I took these projections like really, really close to when lock happened, dude, people were really pivoting, like Arizona and the Mets, and Washington all were owned more than projected, and Atlanta and the Yankees specifically were owned less than projected. So people are doing it. They're actively pivoting, they're actively fading, whatever. I think that in principle I agree with you that this is 100-game slate, and I think the Yankees are just going to get lost. It's hard for the Yankees to get lost, but they're not projecting well at all, you can get them really low owned. I worry though, based on what you just said about, it's weird to have the Yankees playing in San Francisco because they very rarely do. Mm-hmm. I just worry that you're going to get the freaking the stubborn, spiteful San Francisco treatment with the Yankees coming in, where they use like 74 pitchers, and then just do whatever it takes to not let you smash. So that's what I worry about. But aside from that, sure. As far as Stroman goes, just lacks a little bit of the upside I need for a slate like this. So if I get to some of them, I will, but not a priority.
Yeah, that's sort of I kind of sort of agree with that about Stroman. I think the Yankees are the team with they'll have the lowest ownership of those other teams, but they sort of go to me in the same category as New York, Baltimore, Toronto, Boston, Texas. And I think that they belong, they're really expensive, which will keep them low owned. And Hicks has got talent, but he also gets wild. And he's weird. He has these huge strikeout games, and then these games where he literally can't strike any. He just pitched 5 innings against Colorado, had 1 strikeout. And if you're not actively striking these guys out, you're in trouble, because there's too much power in that Yankee lineup. So I do think that they're an interesting contrarian play. My priorities are Cleveland and the Dodgers, then Atlanta, then Milwaukee, in that order. And then all the other teams that I mentioned are fringy, but maybe I use them as side stacks. And my pitching right now, I've got a bunch of guys in consideration, but the guys the 5 who I sort of settled on that I like the most are Beebe, Cease, Buehler, Soriano, and Wu. I guess not that I even like the most, that I feel the safest with, or that I think have the most upside, because I do think that I'm just going to refresh this for a second. I'm looking at the ownership for hitting. It does look pretty spread out. You're going to have ownership on Betts and Ohtani because they just put up points every day. Other than that, it's kind of hard to know who people. I think it looks like people are going to play some Boston, some Texas. Miami looks fairly popular-ish. So maybe this Cleveland Dodger thing can actually work out and be the way that I go today. That's what I'm thinking about.
Okay, so first run without using contest sims is, of course, getting 88% Minnesota. Just like we thought. And then San Diego, and then the aforementioned Milwaukee. That's without even applying contest sims. This is not what I was expecting. Who does Minnesota play again?
Minnesota plays freaking Hadwin. Sorry, I can't even get over. Minnesota is playing what did I have here? Wow, God, I don't even have Minnesota on my list of any kind. Where am I? Oh,
Right?
they're playing Houston. They're playing Houston against
Oh,
Blanco.
against Blanco. Oh my God. But what's weird is that it's not even run sims. I mean, I guess it's just, oh, you know what though? Even the default thing has like based on adjusted ownership, and you having like 1% ownership on some of these Minnesota guys, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, let's run sims and we'll see what we're gonna get here. And as far as pitching goes, hold on. Let's just run the sims and let's see what we have. I don't want to look
Adam just effed me. So frustrating.
Who?
Adam Hadwin.
Dude, I freaking 27 million% dug him, so whatever. And it's like,
yeah. No, but this was like I played one lineup that was like in an actual tournament, and I was in 20th place and with a chance to have everybody all 6 of 6, and that just threw me off.
Oh my.
So
yeah, you know what's showing up is once again they want us to attack the Mets guys and play Arizona, and then of course what else but Oakland. So this is why I was happy to do this. I talked about who I liked, and then I talked about who the sims were getting you to, and then it's up to you to figure out how to blend that stuff. As far as stacks, I actually would want to play right without this stuff. Atlanta, Texas, and the Dodgers. Like those are my 3 top ones. And pitching wise, again, like the Bueller / Soriano, probably in my top 2. I wonder if anybody can be that chalky on a huge slate like this.
Somebody's gonna, you know how it goes, right? Like usually some sort of thing forms around one team, and I think Atlanta is the team that I don't know actually. I really think that you've got a case for like 5 different teams here. So it usually does form around one team, but everybody, I mean, there's a lot of offenses that look good. There's a lot of very questionable pitching. We had the slate we had the other day, Sheets, that pitching slate that we talked about.
Yep.
I felt like there was 9 guys I felt more comfortable with than I feel about basically anybody on this slate,
Yeah.
I'm just one little 8 gamer, and now we've got a 500 million games and I can't figure out who I want to pitch, but I am going to stick with mostly my 5 guys. And I don't think you should worry a crazy amount about ownership. If you're going, I guess, I don't know. I just don't think the Dodgers. I think you're going to have Dodgers that are 5%, 4% owned, and I guess if you don't play the Dodgers with Atlanta, but even that it's hard to do price wise. So I really think you don't have to worry as much about ownership. And then I'll retouch on that at 6 because I don't know what's going to look like throughout the day. I think you're going to see some major changes in what's currently being projected as far as ownership goes. Anyway, all right. Well, we'll be live at 6, and looking forward to this weekend.
Did you play any Andrew Novak?
I play a ton of them. He's like
20%.
Yeah, he's 20% for me.
Let's
he was
go.
one of the guys in that lineup I was talking about. In the 88.
What do you need Hadwin? That's your.
So it's too late. He's not going to make it.
Okay. What's the cut going to be? Even or -1 or something?
Even. It's still stuck between even and +1. It's gaining towards +1, which makes
even a +1. I thought it'd be -1. Okay.
Yeah, -1 is down to 5% of a chance. Man, I'm telling you, this is all I should do is just find where you can bet the lines. I nail it every time because I called +1 yesterday when +1 wasn't even on the board, when it was at -2, -1.
You know what? I could use a +1.
+1 would be helpful for me as well
because I in the signature hole is long gone because that's got Gim and Thigala together. But the 250 I have I'm okay with also but I have Cam Young who's done at +1.
Yeah, he's the one I need +1 for too. I've got him like literally like 40%. It's crazy how much of them I ended up.
Yeah, so I'm going to need that, but that one's kind of a good one. So we'll see what happens. But
Yep.
I guess that's all I got. You're good for 6 today. I'm good for abbreviated 6.
Abbreviated 6 is exactly. It sounds perfect. It's just baseball. There's not going to be much to do. In fact, we'll talk about it some other time. But whatever days we can't do shows or whatever, there's going to be some dog days of summer where it's just baseball, and you don't really need 2 shows for every baseball slate in general. I don't think. So we can always come and go. I do want to at some point go on when you record one of your other ones, just to sort of watch the MMA thing or whatever.
Sure.
But I'll just be there, just watching and maybe asking a few novice questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well.